All right, and sync. Okay. Okay. Let me double check something real quick. Yeah, it'll be fine. So, how are you?
Um, well, I'm doing pretty well at this point. It's been a really weird week
Yeah.
because I just had someone text me like, "Hey, is Ophelia dead?" And I was like, "This is the first I've heard. Can you tell me your evidence?" And then I saw a tweet about a Tower Research German national who was dead, and I was like, "Oh, those biographical details do match up." And I checked, and I was like, "Oh yeah, my photo matches." And uh yeah, so and then I just tweeted it and I've been living with the consequences. It's been quite something.
Yeah, you were pretty much like the first person to sort of say, "Hey, this is a Ziz thing," and then from there, because I clicked on your tweet. It was your tweet that I clicked on. Let me close my window. People are being loud outside. Um, but yeah, your tweet was the first one where I was like, yeah, because I clicked on Ophelia's Twitter profile and we had 15 mutuals in common, and I was like, oh, okay. So this thing that everyone thought was happening with Luigi or whatever was like not real, but this is kind of real. Like these are people that I've been mutuals with for quite a while. So and I was like,
Mhm.
okay. And from then it was just yeah. I think that was probably the start of it for like a lot of people. So but yeah. So how when so I guess when did it like the whole when does the story? What's like the earliest we can start the story for you? Like in terms of like the first time you heard about Ziz or Ophelia or any of these people.
So I think that I'm probably met Ziz in person in 2015 or 2016.
Okay.
And I don't remember if it was at a Rationalist party or CFAR workshop or something. But we had a conversation about this kind of like psychology self-help stuff that is pretty normal for CFAR. So things like, I think specifically we talked about the idea of things like making New Year's resolutions or like a journal where you like make binding commitments and then follow up on them. And Ziz was criticizing this because it's like coercing your future self, and there's probably a better way to do things without like making these binding commitments. And this is like a pretty reasonable idea that is pretty similar to what CFR people were saying back then. So it's just a random conversation just from way back.
That's interesting. I guess I don't know how versed you are on the philosophy of what Ziz sort of preaches and talks about, because
Mhm.
um, would you like answer a question about that? Because to me that sounds
Oh, sure.
contradictory. Because
Yeah,
it
I've
seems
I've basically read the blog. I've read the blog for years now. Yeah.
okay, and you understand it.
Um, Mostly, I wouldn't say I've
Okay.
carefully read the blog, but I at least have read the blog.
Well, mostly puts you like way above me. I had another conversation with a Jersey, and we went over some of the philosophical elements yesterday, and that was one of the first times I actually kind of feel like I'm wrapping my head around this. But I feel like the sort of deciding rationally what you should do, and then applying that later. Like I thought that was something that like Ziz was all about, but I think I might not have that right.
Oh, well, so I think that um well there's a making rational decisions part, but oh, the binding part. So I think this is like the self-blackmail post, which is an early post.
Okay.
And I think it has to do with Ziz being suspicious about being in conflict with yourself. Also relates to the false faces idea of like when people claim to be internally conflicted or coercing themselves or something, that there's something like off about the description or off about the psychology or ineffective about this. But I think that's different from this notion of timeless decision theory binding commitments. Of like I timelessly pre-commit is kind of a fun phrase that Sis uses a lot, which I think is not it's not about being in conflict with yourself so much as making decisions from this more like mathematical sense of identity than a like personal embodied sense of identity.
That makes sense, in a way. So basically, the New Year's resolutions and things like that are like they're just not a good idea. Well, it's like because instead of like solving internal conflict by just like deciding to do things or whatever, if you have internal conflict, you solve that through game theory and a mathematical approach.
Mm.
I think.
Well, yeah, I think that that's where like stuff like the inner hemispheric game theory comes in. I mean, it's not just game theory; it's also this psychology, self-help type stuff. And that's part of why I mentioned CFAR because some of these ideas about things like being more internally unified and acting more as an agent are like fairly mainstream CFAR ideas that
Mm-hmm.
people around there were talking about. Like, and that's the thing that comes up again and again with Ziz's thinking is that any individual idea you can pretty much you can take like the idea that the you are actually two into brain hemispheres. Any individual idea you can probably find somewhere else, and it's like some people will believe it. It's like at least somewhat credible, or like timeless decision theory. But the combination is just like really unusual because it's all these like somewhat weird but like somewhat credible ideas stacked on top of each other and then taken to 11.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you met Ziz at a party a little bit, and then
Yeah, some sort of rationalist event or workshop or office or something. Um, and it was a case of like this just seemed like a kind of a normal, serious like EA CFAR rationalist person back then. And I probably in like 2016 or 2017 met some others like Emma and Somni and Gwen. Like
mhm.
I remember like talking with Gwen about things like mental tech or sharing ontologies, which is kind of a like like hey do you have any mental tech you would like to share, which is kind of a weird way of phrasing it, but it's a thing that a lot of the CFAR-ish people were doing at the time of like hey I have these psychology techniques, do you want to learn my psychology techniques?
That is really that's funny. I like that. It's like it reminds me of in the Smash Bros competitive Smash scene like way back in like the early 2000s, people would talk about mind games. They're like, "Yeah, do you have it?" They're like the top players would be like, "Yeah, you need more mind games, you need to up your mind games in terms of just like outsmarting your opponent. And it was just sort of a funny way that's sort of like oversimplifying things, but yeah, I feel like people don't, people talk about like ideas. I don't know, mental tech. It's a very like I guess abstracted way of thinking about it, but I mean, doesn't seem to be totally false.
Mm. Hmm.
So
Yeah.
what were they? So were they all? They were like all normal, except I mean, normal in terms of like the average kind of person in this scene at that point.
Well, if anything, this was more normal than the other ones. Like, I think the other ones were like more like trans by the time I met them, and also like more seemed more like socially strange than Ziz initially did. Although Ziz did become more strange, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, I think that but like they were like reasonably normal for rationalists. Like it's it was kind of a like I guess they were like maybe more dedicated about like well let's say especially Somni and Gwen were like more dedicated about like let's like think through ideas seriously and to have all these like mental techniques and stuff. Emma seemed more like someone who was just like really into math and into the scene, but didn't as much seem like yeah I need to save the world.
Yeah. Okay. Now I heard I heard from like just some tweet that was quoting an article that said that Emma used to work at Google, and I couldn't find the tweet, and then I kind of lost it, and then I was trying to corroborate that. Do you know if that's true?
My impression is that's true. Um, like I think I did meet with Emma at some point, so I I'm not entirely sure, but that's my
Mm-hmm.
guess. I remember hearing something about how like some Google employee was funding the Ziz crew, and it might have been Emma.
Okay. All right. Now so I guess you just kind of like knew these people in the scene, and then the first event that really I guess pops off is the protest. Were you there for that, or what was your experience of
Oh,
that?
yeah, so I wasn't there for the actual protest. And so I was actually like at some event in New York, and it's just like, oh, I just heard about this. And the first thing I heard was that someone at the workshop had lied to the police and said that they had a gun,
Mm-hmm.
and that's part of why they got swatted. And it was a weird memory to for me to remember that because like over the course of years I kept mentioning like what about the first thing where this person lied about the gun and people like no one else remembered it, but apparently that idea is now coming up now, like some people are now asserting this. So I'm just recalling like somehow I got notification like someone lied to the police about them having a gun and they got arrested. I heard later secondhand that they resisted arrest real hard,
Yeah.
and I got to read the flyer at some point. Um, I think that's something that happened a bit prior to the protest. I guess there's like this intermediate thing that's relevant.
Hmm.
A number of things that are relevant. First of all, I went kind of psychotic in like late 2017, and Ziz offered to like help repair my mind in exchange for information, and I declined the offer. And I'm in retrospect glad that I declined the offer. I think that putting a like psychotic person under the mental care of Ziz is like a bad idea.
Um. Sorry, I was just adding. I'm adding sticky notes to my wall. But
Hmm.
So okay, so you had a like a like a medically considered psychotic break.
Yeah.
Okay.
I,
Well,
I
I'm
was in a
glad.
psych ward for like a few weeks in like October 2017.
Well, I'm glad you're okay.
Yep.
Um, I'm assuming you don't want to talk about why, and that it probably wouldn't be relevant, right?
I could talk about it a little bit.
Just however
It was
much you
this whole
want.
like drama post when I posted on Less Wrong and I like kind of mentioned that I was psychotic again. It became this whole like 1,000 thread Less Wrong post. But to just like briefly summarize, it was like a few months after I'd left Miri and things were kind of socially weird, and also I was like taking psychedelics, and I like lost a bunch of sleep like for a week, and things got weird, and then there were these like weird social interactions as I was like like only like moderately insane, where like I don't know, it's just things were going very weird. I think people, it wasn't just me who was acting strange. I think other people were acting strange around me, and I just like lost a bunch of sleep, and I ended up going to the psych ward and then thinking that I don't know. I had these weird thoughts about like whether I was like causing World War III or was like I don't know, and it like possessed by demonic forces or something. But it's not the most important thing because it's like kind of it's a funny story, but it's like doesn't actually connect with the world that much.
I was gonna call that funny. I mean, it kind of is now that you say that, but like, I don't think psychotic breaks are funny. It's a little funny. Ziz offered to help you. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm treating it as funny because it's kind of a cope, but whatever. I've gotten over it. So, but this afterwards, I was like still like kind of depressed and had some strange ideas about the world. But this
okay.
offered to help me in terms of I don't know, helping repair my mind in exchange for the information gained. And I'm just saying, I'm glad I did not take Ziz up on that offer
Yeah. Do you
because
know about like what month or what year that was?
it was probably like November or December 2017, possibly early 2018. Um, but that was the first event that I wanted to mention. The second event
Okay.
was so I think there was a point where Ziz was sort of deciding to like press on the whole Miri cult thing,
Yes.
which are these like statutory rape accusations.
Yes.
Um, and so I think I just had a conversation with Ziz about this, not just about the Miri cult stuff, but also about um, the death of Maya or Pasek. And Ziz
Hmm.
had this kind of weird story about like this person had two hemispheres. One was good, the other was selfish but TDT, and they got in a fight, and there was a
What's TDT?
pre-commitment to. timeless decision theory.
Oh, right. Okay.
Um, which includes the idea of being able to coordinate with copies of yourself in a prisoner's dilemma. Um, so it's kind of like this has this idea of like goodness, which has to do with care for sentient beings everywhere, and also this idea of TDT, which more comes from Miri, which has to do with this identifying as an abstract algorithm and therefore able to cooperate with copies of yourself. And Ziz's narrative about Maya Pasek's death was about the two brain hemispheres getting into a fight,
Hmm.
and there being some sort of commitment to kill the body under some circumstance. So it's just this very strange story that
Yeah.
involves like this kind of Zizian theory of like brain hemispheres and good and stuff. And I hear that Maya Pasek was actually like in like Europe at the time,
Yeah.
so it's not like there was like they're like they were actually in like social like in person social contact, I think.
Yeah, because this has been blamed for that death by people. And although I don't think accepting this is his help for upgrading mental tech or sort of, being a like a sort of psychological authority is healthy, probably. I don't know if I would. I haven't heard any
Oh,
evidence to
that's a good
suggest to go
point.
that far.
Yeah, it's a case of like I don't know. I feel like if someone is going to it's just harder to blame someone for causing a suicide if it's like across in like another continent, and
Yeah.
it's like
And like
this
there
person
have
wrote
been
this
like
suicide. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And like there's been like times where people have, like told people to kill themselves or tried to talk persuade them into it and like through the internet in a really evil way, but I haven't, heard anything about that. I have heard that afterwards she sort of updated her model on like whether info hazards were real and sort of tried to be more careful about the stuff she talked about Maya with, which I guess could be read either as an admission of guilt or like just feel wanting to be more careful or not make it happen again. But I mean, it's all super speculation. Can I ask if it's relevant and you want to talk about it, why you left Miri?
Oh yeah, why did I left Miri? So I think that it was a case of um, so there was some social weirdness around the time, but like um, one thing that was happening was that the AI timelines were getting a lot shorter. Like this is like 2017, people are saying, I think we're going to have super intelligence in 20 years. And to be clear, by now super intelligence can even mean a kind of tame thing, the way that like someone like Sam Altman is talking about. It's like, oh yeah, opening up, we're going to build super intelligent. And he's not thinking of like, and then it goes on to like take over the world
Yeah.
and like turn the world's atoms into, but like these people in the sort of like Yukowskian context were thinking superintelligence meant that. They were saying it was coming in like 20 years, which would be like 2037. And I was like, well, it seemed like you're like updating your AI timelines a lot. It doesn't seem like you're providing very good evidence. And it was kind of frustrating because some of the conversations I felt like couldn't really be had because these people were like, but if we have these conversations about, if you talk about these timelines in public, or like the conversation happens in public, then like maybe it'll accelerate AI too much. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there were some things that seemed like kind of sus to me. Like there's the like not wanting to discuss timelines, and there's they had like a bunch of secret projects and like didn't actually let me in on any of them, even though I was like the person with the most ML experience at the organization. And they just became like a lot more secretive. Where like as an example of a policy, um, they had the policy that if you're like if the researchers aren't supposed to ask each other about what they're working on because some people are working on secret projects, and if they're working on secret projects, then they'd have to say I'm working on a secret project, and that would leak information. And that just seemed absurd to me. And unfortunately, I can't quite get written confirmation from anyone else that this was ever a policy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but and they like doubt my memory of this, but like I do remember this. And so this I'm telling you about the relatively legible aspects of like Miri and whatever
Yeah.
AI timelines, but there's also just the social drama and the psychological drama. Like there's I told you the institutional drama bit, which is like an obviously contested narrative, but there's also the social drama and the psychological drama. Um, and I think the psychological drama involved people thinking like, getting into more of this like psychology or mental tech stuff and being like, oh, there's all these kinds of things you can do with your mind. Like you can have a tulpa, you can be two people with IFS, you can like self upgrade by something something, and you can see like a bit of this sort of like weird psychology go strange in the Ziz case, but this weird psychology stuff was not at all unique to Ziz. Like, um, I guess I was talking with people like Alice Munday and like Olivia Schaefer at the time, and like there was some weird stuff going on. There were multiple people going psychotic other than me, um, and and then there's a social drama of there being like possibly different factions. With there's like the Miri Sefar faction, which was like sort of coordinating on like whatever they're doing with the short AI timelines and doing something about it. There's like the sort of like Michael Vassar scene, which I was more part of, and there's like the Ziz thing. And I think this was around a similar time period to stuff like the article Net Negative, which is detailing some sort of like social drama having to do with Ziz being in a conflict with Sefar.
Okay.
So it was sort of this weird like
There was drama.
I'm saying like 2016, 2017, there was this weird like psychosocial drama going on, and there was also these like institutional changes having and things related to AI.
Okay. Right. Now, so what's after that? The so there's Maya Pasic, there's the protest, there's you leaving Miri, and
Oh,
then
right. Right. I think I skipped over the part about the Mary cult stuff because that actually does appear in the flyer. Um,
Miracle.
and yeah, so basically some statutory rape accusations,
Ah, right.
and so the so I was like Ziz records me in one of the posts I think intersects brains as kind of like discouraging Ziz from pushing too much on this, because I don't know, it didn't seem wise to like really push hard on like this kind of angle. um and Ziz is like, but Jessica's making a too big to fail argument, so like there's like that kind of recorded in the at least Ziz's account.
Is that an
um
accurate description of what you told her?
I think broadly the account's accurate.
Okay.
um I don't want to say too much about the object level, but like I'll
Yeah.
just say like I was discouraging Ziz from this protest type thing with respect to that. And I think that there was also um, a core part of this of how it's relevant is not just that it's an accusation of a crime, but that it's an accusation of giving into blackmail,
Yeah.
right? So according
Which
to
is
Ziz's
worse.
information, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean the reason it's relevant is that it's a more disjunctive criticism, right? It's like it's covering more possible bases for showing why these people are doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So like their own decision theory says that I'll just explain the argument because I think it's broadly valid, at least in a thought experiment. Suppose someone like basically knows you really well, and they're going to threaten you by threatening to do something bad to you unless you give them like $500, but they've
Hmm.
committed to only do this threat once, right? Um, so the argument is there's one argument for giving them $500, which is like maybe you would lose more than $500 by them doing the bad thing, right? But then you can note that this has problems because it's pretty exploitable because they could have increased it to more than $500. Um, and also, if you commit ahead of time, according to your decision theory, to like not give in to blackmail, then like they don't have an incentive to do this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like in this like thought experiment land, it is broadly consistent with my work at Miri that like yeah, you should not give in to blackmail in this like idealized thought experiment.
Hmm.
But the thing that the relevance is that there's a case of Miri being blackmailed by a former employee and them apparently deciding to give in to blackmail, and this is problematic as if they're saying this is the right decision theory, but then not actually doing it in real life. A lot of
Yeah.
people are going to be pretty disappointed by that. And I think a thing to note about a lot of their disappointments with Miri and Sefar said in the flyers is that a lot of what they've been disappointed by is these organizations not living up to their own principles. Um,
And
because a lot of people really looked up to these organizations as like moral authorities and like people who might be world saving. And so if they're doing something that's like, I don't know, fairly normal, like do what your lawyer says when you're accused of things, but it's not like in line with their principles, some people will be very disappointed by that.
yeah, and earlier you said that your basic idea about Italians is to not protest was that it was too big to fail. Can you just like expound upon that a little bit and put it for me in like plain English?
Right. So I think from Ziz's perspective, the thing I was urging of like this might just like kind of mess up people's lives without a clear benefit. That was basically my argument. Was
Okay.
like maybe giving in to like allowing this social order that had already been formed to do its thing and unopposed, right? And it's kind of like you can. I think too big to fail is referring to like the 2008 financial crisis when there's this order of like the banks doing their thing, and then after that the politicians are like, well, let's maybe like bail them out so that things don't collapse too much. Let's not like soften the blow. And a lot of people can object to this because it sets a bad precedent
Yeah.
and creates bad incentives, that sort of thing. So I think
Oh,
Ziz
okay.
was making a sort of argument that like maybe like baking in the order in which Mir Sifar are in charge, and like worrying too much about messing people's lives up from pushing on certain things in the context of a protest is like not actually a valid concern because what's more important is some sort of justice type thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. That does make a lot of sense from both sides, I suppose. Um, but yeah, so we got the protest and why you told them not to do the protest. How soon after the protest did you start hearing about everything, or did we already talk about that?
Yeah, so I think it was like basically right when it happened because like just someone told me and maybe they heard about it over the phone about like this protest and how someone lied and said they had a gun.
Okay. Yeah.
And they got like really swatted. Like it was that
Yeah.
really stood out as like it's not this is not a normal police response.
Yeah. Because partially because I think of the allegations that there might be a weapon, and also the fact that there was children there that they were preventing from leaving, and that they just sort of took that as an interpretation for bringing the SWAT guys. You know.
Hmm. Yeah, like it's and they got like very severe charges of things like child kidnapping or
Yeah.
something. And I think in the it might have been some like either your document or like Ayla's photo or something. Like they apparently like blocked the bridge with the car,
Yeah.
and that makes more sense of like what happened because it's like something intermediate between just a regular old like peaceful protest where you like hand out pamphlets and like something that would be like concerningly violent. It's a kind of an intermediate point where it's actually like pretty disruptive
Yeah.
to do that. And like if you like twist the legal reasoning a bunch, you could sort of argue like it's child kidnapping because they're preventing people from leaving. But in any case, at the time, the charges just seemed really excessive.
Yeah, and those charges did get reduced quite a bit, and then they were able
Mhm.
to make bail after the fact. So I suppose that I suppose that's how the legal system is, quote unquote, supposed to work. But the so then afterwards, they were kind of ostracized, or like they were kind of like after the protests is when Zizian info came out, and then that's when they were oh, I should add that to the doc, the date where Zizian's info was published.
Hmm.
Sorry.
Okay.
So Zizian's info was published, and people, from what I hear, a lot of people were sort of like starting to be a lot more hesitant and sort of starting to see them as a cult. What was your experience with them like at this point? Were you still
Yeah.
living in the Bay Area?
So I was living in the Bay Area for a while, but then moved to New York at some point, like 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that my impression was like the charges actually were excessive. I didn't even really have the details about whether they blocked the bridge. So I was like, if they're doing a peaceful protest, handing out pamphlets, it seems like
Mm-hmm.
people have this like really excessive response to them, like both the police and the rationalists. And so I was still like broadly sympathetic at the time.
Mm-hmm.
After the protest, in terms of like it seemed like they had these excessive charges, and maybe a lot of it had to do with like the vibes being off, things like the scary clothing. And so I was sort of concerned about it as like maybe this is a legal injustice where people are discriminated against for like going about this in a strange way and not being socially conforming. But like to be clear, I wasn't there, so I didn't
Yeah.
actually know what happened very well.
And also, I just want to be clear for the record. The images I have that are sort of showing that they blocked off the bridge as the only entrance and exit. That was told to me like kind of secondhand, and I'm trying to reach out to that person and get them to confirm with me firsthand. And I also might talk with the camp and get them to
Hmm.
confirm that. But basically, whether or not all the exits were actually blocked is or just that like some of them were is like not something I can really confirm or deny because I saw it, but like Camp Meeker and then things like that. It's like it's kind of like spread out over a highway and there's multiple different things, so it's like it's not open and shut whether they were actually trapping people there, but it is on a bridge allegedly, and they're over a river, so you could. It would be very easy to make the case that if that was the only entrance or exit, that like you are preventing children from leaving,
Hmm.
and there's no
Yeah.
like they can't go around it or anything. So yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah. So how did your the protest was you could see a lot of things from their perspectives. When Zizian info came out, did you read it? Did you update any of your beliefs about them?
Oh, I did read it. And uh yeah, so I think I was maybe talking with some other people around the time to like maybe get more context. And I think I understood more like what was just like extremely weird about this protest. It was things like they resisted arrest really hard, maybe like screamed at the police. Um, and I think Zizian's info, it like broadly matched my impressions. I know there have been like doubts on this website's accuracy, but like for the most part, I read it and I was like, it might be overemphasizing the basilisk aspect. It might be overestimating the like retroactive punishment aspect. Like I think in principle, Ziz would agree with retroactive punishment under some conditions, but the Zizians might be playing up like the whole thing where like they like punish meat eaters with their AI. Um, like I'm like not very confident in that. It might be a bit of a stretch. But like the unihemispheric sleep, I did hear about that. I have a theory about unihemispheric sleep actually. Um, this
Okay.
is I see this as a relatively non-crankish theory. So my theory is that the thing about the brain hemispheres being like things that might kind of have different personalities or process information separately is like broadly accurate, and we don't notice that most of the time because of things like you have two eyes and they get um, coalesced into one image. Right. So you barely notice that there's like two hemispheres, but actually the information streams are there actually are two different channels. But if you have experienced sleep deprivation, like I have, then you can actually get the sense of like you can be like multi-streaming your eyes, and it can be like I'm getting like two different images. I remember I had this weird experience while like sleep deprived of like trying to like program FizzBuzz and debug it as like a test for myself, and I was like having trouble because I was looking at the program with one eye and the output with the other eye, and it was weird. And I was even like, are my two different sides of my body like different sides or like different coalitions? And it was really weird. Um,
Okay.
so so like broadly, my sense is that sleep deprivation can cause people to have this like quote debucketing experience where they feel like their two brain hemispheres are more like two different people than they usually feel, but it might not have to do much with unihemispheric sleep. Like it might actually just mostly be sleep deprivation. And also, if it were actually half of your brain going to sleep, that is a scientifically testable hypothesis because you should be getting pretty different brain waves from one side of the brain if it actually is asleep. So I think I think Ziz and I would disagree about what is going on in human hemispheric sleep. Where my guess is it's just like regular old sleep deprivation. Ziz's guess is actually one of the brain is falling asleep. But what's funny is that there actually is a scientific test of this. So
Really?
yeah, because I think it has to do with brain waves. Like the brain emits different waves if it's waking or sleeping.
Really quick, I think some background noise on your end just started to come on. Do you know what that would be?
Can you
Did
say
it,
that again?
I'm starting to hear a little bit of background noise. Did like the air come on or something, or
Oh, there's like cars outside, but it doesn't. It does it sound noisy right now?
keep talking.
Okay. Hello? Hello?
Can you sing the alphabet? Sorry, it's
Oh,
when you're not talking, it shuts off your mic like a gate.
okay. Like A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
It's there a little bit, but it's fine. It was probably just the cars. Sorry for interrupting you.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
this.
I might have just been talking faster or something. So,
No, you're good. But yeah, so
okay.
the paper on um, sl- brainwaves on sleep deprivation.
Well, I don't have a paper citation. I just know someone who knows about neuroscience. So, this is just like secondhand scientific information. But I could try looking it up afterwards.
Okay, or if you just tell them, because I think that would be cool to include, but
Hmm.
at least like from a phenomenological perspective, you're saying that it's like that it is like possible to feel that, and it's not just
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't.
un,
That's not based on a paper. That's based on having
yeah.
experienced sleep deprivation.
No,
Yeah,
yeah, the phenomenological side, but like on the
yeah,
scientific side, it's I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's not top priority, but I think it'd be cool. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm. Now, so
Right. We're
there's
talking
like,
about Zizian's.
yeah,
Yeah.
Zizian info, yeah.
I mean, yeah. I think it's like mostly accurate, and it's like kind of embellished in a way that's fun. Like it's kind of funny to imagine that these people's plan is to make this like AI singleton and then like torture the meat eaters afterwards. The kind of thing that I've heard from Ziz about AI, I think this goes back to the same call we were talking about, like Pasek and Miracle, is like what is how does Ziz frame her plans in terms of this like singleton or friendly AI thing? And the framing of Ziz's plans under that kind of ontology is that if you have a group of people who are all good or double good, if you can identify who is double good and like basically get them working at the same AI company, and they can be very coordinated. And when they're very coordinated, they will cooperate with each other really well, and they will be able to produce a friendly AI with a higher probability, and also might be able to politically coordinate in a way that that like causes them to be more likely to win social conflicts. And so it's sort of proposed as like here's a weird way to get one weird trick to get friendly AI. Get a bunch of double good people in the same room, and then they'll figure something out because they'll have the same utility function, so they'll coordinate really well.
It's funny because that sounds a lot like Freemasonry and like a lot of the ideas behind a lot of the people that go into that. But I don't think Freemasonry is really known or discussed in like these sort of tech circles whatsoever. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
like I think a lot of what the people are longing for with regards to this is a Freemasonry branch or lodge that has to do with like focusing on AI. And it's a lot of it would be like a non-starter for them or whatever, but that is just like from my perspective interesting. Um I think I actually don't think. So,
okay.
we can keep going.
um, yeah. So let's go to the timeline. So the timeline, there was a
Well, really quick
protest.
first on
Yeah.
the C word, the cult word.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts about that, especially at the time?
So I would say I was getting cult vibes from the whole thing with Pasek's death, where it was described
Mm.
in terms of these really weird ideas like unihemispheric sleep or like debucketing and having this one of your brain hemispheres is good, one of them is non-good, but TDT, and it's just like this really weird language. Um, and also the website itself uses like Mage the Ascension language a bunch about like Prime or whatever. And I've like casually read Mage the Ascension, so very very vaguely familiar with some of this. Um, but it seems like it was like roughly accurate then, and I did describe them. What's very funny is I just kind of like casually mentioned in my Ophelia tweet that I warned her that they're a death cult, and then I see death cult appear in some headlines of news articles, and I'm like, wow, was that my fault? But I think it's like it's like roughly accurate, but kind of vague, I think. And
Okay.
especially now, it's like really unnecessarily vague because,
Yeah.
there's like it's like there's a criminal gang involved in a string of crimes, including homicides.
Yeah.
And it's like, does it really matter if they're cults? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've been like, I guess, a little bit more skeptical of like using the word, especially because the first person I interviewed was Slime Priestess. But the I feel like the more that people who are like, who know them in real life, who are like kind of closer to them, or at least were at some point like you, like if you were feeling like they are getting cult vibes, like but even before the protest, then I think that's like that's a pretty good like indication for me that it's
I
like
see. That's a good point. Yeah.
like true. It's like getting fairly close there in terms of like words that describe the vibe, even if like
Hmm.
there's not a great definition of a cult or whatever, or if like like this wasn't exploiting everyone in there for money. I don't think.
No, I don't think it was about money.
Yeah. Um. So okay. So after that, basically, is the landlord incident because that happens fairly soon. They move in with him around late 2019, and then stop paying rent when the pandemic hits. So
Yeah. So I think a little before then there was a fake death thing, and
oh yes,
I
that
confirm. I even like Facebook messaged one of Ziz's family members and was like, "Hey, is this actually happened?" And then the family member's like, "Yeah, the death." And apparently, I think in your document there's like some maybe confirmation that family members actually did think this was dead, or at least said so. It might not have been
um
your back. It might have been a journal article.
yeah, there's I didn't include it just because I didn't think it was super relevant, but yeah, her parents did indicate at that time that they believed that she was dead to like more than one person. I think it showed up in some news articles and just, word of mouth.
Right. Um, so I was like pretty surprised, although some of my the people I was talking with at the time, like my friends, thought like, boating accident, that's so suspicious. Like who like who like just up and dies in a boating accident with like no foul play of any kind, like whether it's like fake death or homicide or something. It's like so
Yeah.
suspicious.
It is the
Um,
easiest way to fake your death. Just have your friends go on a boat and they're like, "Oh no, he fell off."
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
then they said the
Um,
Coast Guard has to search for you and they don't find you and it's like I guess he drowned. It's like it does seem mean. But what's funny is that was a method that Ziz used to fake her death, but that which was accepted by her lawyer. But then Gwen's attempted death was not because I'm like 90% sure like and there's like legal proceedings where their lawyer because they were countersuing the camp.
mhm.
Their lawyer for that lawsuit was like, I think that my clients have both basically been confirmed or like they've been like communicated to me that they're dead. And I want to move forward with the legal proceedings of, basically behaving and proceeding forward as if Ziz is dead, but not Gwen. And I'm reaching out
Oh,
to a lawyer mutual of mine to get
yeah. I
confirmation on
mean,
that. But
I think it was like I heard that with the Gwen thing it was more like a rumor. Like I didn't think there were like witnesses or anything. Um,
uh,
but I even like tracked down like who is Gwen's father and
mm-hmm.
like called him and it was like, hey, I think Gwen is dead. And he was like, oh, that's news to me. Um, so apparently that was probably wrong. But like I don't even know how do these people's parents not know that thing? I don't know. Somehow the rumor didn't get to their parents until I called them. Um,
Yeah.
no.
Um, so then, yeah, they both allegedly faked their death, and then well, Ziz definitely faked it because Ziz is definitely
Yeah.
confirmed to be alive. And then we get to the landlord
Yeah.
incident where they
So
get into
so that it
altercation.
was so weird to see like in like some court document or transcript like we thought Sis was dead, but Sis was found at the scene of the crime. The
Yep.
crime is like this whole like landlord stabbing episode that leaves Emma dead and is just like insane. And I feel like I described this to journalists before. I feel like this is when the Zizians jumped the shark. Like I was with them until like when even up until like I thought they were dead, I was like, like we have our differences. They're kind of crazy in some ways. I totally understand that. But like maybe they're doing the right thing according to like, some confused way of thinking. Like they don't seem like net negative or like that harmful. Like suicide, suspicious. I understand, but like then like just this crazy incident of like stabbing the landlord, where you can even find a comment on Ziz's blog about how um, paying rent to landlords is bad practice because you can instead blackmail your landlord. Like, it's just like what? Like it's just insane.
That makes it sound so like more aggressive and noble when in reality they're like Gavin Newsom says you can't evict us, so you can't evict us, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yes. So I
But
mean,
yeah.
I guess that's how Sign Priest has described it, is like this sort of like drawn out eviction process that is often like maybe there's legal limitations on them evicting you, um, and
Do you think
but
I
like
should include a section in the document about like stated beliefs that could correlate to some of these suspected crimes? Because I was kind of not wanting to do that at first, but now it's like, I don't know, people might find it
I mean,
useful.
I would consider it like circumstantially relevant to have things
Yeah.
like I would say like there's of course the blackmailing landlords thing. I think that's relevant. There's also the weird Emma comments in the community alert post about like kill your parents is a good meme. Like,
Was that
I
any Emma?
did you see that?
I thought that I thought that was no, I thought that was Ophelia.
No, I think that's Emma. Emma Borhanian in the community alert post
Hmm.
was like saying that like sometimes parents do things that are really bad, like force children to go to school on pain of death, and then killing them can be a really good action. It's like justified vengeance, and kill your parents is a good meme.
I love how
Um,
they say like on pain of death as if like parents just don't make their kids do stuff. And that's just sort of like the way things have almost always been. But yeah.
yeah, I mean
Um
it's like I don't know. It's a way of describing it that like I mean I guess a parent will be very disappointed if their kid doesn't go to school, but it's not like the kid will die in the general case. I guess they might have like a very messed up life
mhm.
if they decide never to go to school.
Yeah.
But
Although I did somebody sent me a tweet by Ophelia and I can mention it here, but they were like, hey, Ophelia was talking about how it's like was it not it wasn't kill your landlord, it was like kill your abuser as like a meme, which is like, a general leftist Tumblr meme. And Ophelia was
yeah,
talking about how it might be more accurate to or not more accurate, but it's also saying like kill your parents and sort of discussing the merits of that. And I was like right around the murder of the parents in Pennsylvania. And I didn't add it because it was like a response to a thread from a locked account that was like 2 dozen posts long, and it just seemed a little too much out of context and too like circumstantial.
oh
But yeah,
yeah. I mean, I think Ophelia was like I was talking with Ophelia in 2022, and I mean that seems more like apologism, right? Like it's not like that doesn't indicate much about what happened or what these people did. It's just like
yeah.
here's
The
someone.
police have said
Yeah.
that Ophelia flew in into the states and landed in Pennsylvania like really close to the time of the murder, but you know that's the only
How weird.
reason and I think she's listed as a person of interest, but it's not. I don't know. I feel like the
Yeah,
only
I really had no idea.
yeah.
Yeah, because from my perspective, Ophelia was like interested in like rationalism, EA, criticisms of EA, like I don't know, mathematics, and was like a fan of Ziz and like the Ziz blog, and we even had some messages about how this like silver and ivory person had disappeared, and I was saying like, there's a decent chance this person is dead because the person like disappeared and like basically told all of the friends like uh to like not contact them and went to live in a trailer with Ziz or something, and I was like, dangerous given the
Who is this?
circumstances.
This is
Silver
the
and
first.
Tumblr. I don't know what the legal name is at all, but I heard like one speculation of Suri Dao, but like totally unconfirmed. We don't know who Silver and Ivory is. But the reason I mention this is that it shows that Ophelia was actually in contact with Ziz and crew, because
Mm-hmm.
Ophelia sent a message to these people about seeking information about this person and offering a cash bounty.
What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again? So Ziz was trying to offer a cash
Well,
bounty for
yeah.
Silver and Ivory.
Right. Ophelia. Ophelia wanted. I was trying to convince Ophelia, like, hey, this person might be dead. Maybe you should do something about it. Like, talk to
Okay.
people who last talked with this person. Um, And Ophelia decided, like, oh, I guess I'll put out a cash bounty for information about this person and tell like Ziz, Emma, Somni, and some others. This was before the landlord thing. I think before the fake death. Um,
Right.
but
The
timing's
landlord
weird.
mentioned that there was people constantly coming and going. He was like, there's like 6 to 8 like regular people who live on the property, but there's like all the time just like random people coming and going. So
I see.
he was like just really not keeping track of it, and just is like, oh, here's some new naked people running around my lot. I guess that's just what it is, type thing. So that would line up if that was before the incident with the landlord. But I think we're getting a little bit
Yeah,
ahead
my
of ourselves,
guess is
Sobel.
it was because Ophelia mentioned Emma, and she would not have mentioned Emma if Emma was dead.
Yeah, and Emma was living there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so I realized there was like some amount of like Ziz crew apologism after the landlord stabbing, maybe by Ophelia if I recall correctly, probably by others like the Emma's Death website.
Yeah.
But like but broadly speaking, it was like for me that was just like that they totally
I'm
jumped the shark there.
sorry,
Like you
Emma's
don't have to do
Emma's
that.
Emma's what?
There's like the Emma's Death website, like the Remembering Emma Burhanian, which was like claiming that Somni acted in self-defense.
Is that the same thing as that Tumblr post? The that was basically going into Emma's death and sort of from a more defensive, they did nothing wrong standpoint.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it like the same thing? Is it like copy pasted, just like the same thing, or is this like
I think Emma's
same
Death
perspective?
Cities might be a mirror.
Okay, we'll check it out after
Um,
the pod.
yeah.
But
So,
yeah,
so I mentioned this. I just remember someone else I was talking with at the time was saying like, "I stand Somni with the samurai sword." I don't know. It could be ironic, but like there was some amount of people who were still like the real dedicated fans of the show even after it jumps the shark.
yeah, okay, yeah. And also at the there is allegedly some legal document of somebody in law enforcement stating they found Gwen at the scene of that crime. Or I don't know if
Okay.
at the scene. I think the day after. But that and that's the only indication to show that she's alive, besides her lawyer's doubt at the time.
I
So
think another weird thing I saw in a news article is that they left some laptops and hard drives, and that just seems like incredibly bad info security. Um, like, if you are strongly suspected of a crime, like why are you leaving your laptops there? It
yeah,
seems very obvious that the police will seize them and use it to figure out other crimes.
huh? Yeah, I mean that would be weird. I heard they found so Lind got a bodyguard afterwards because he was afraid they would come back, like an armed bodyguard, who was also like a friend, I believe. And that friend said that they found buckets of lye in the place, as well as ultrasound equipment and needles. And I used to work with some radiologists, and I hit them up, and they were saying like the that you can use ultrasound machines to like find a vein, and that it's like you can use it to basically be more effective in injecting yourself with intravenous drugs and then other things. I heard this someone, this is like wild speculation. Someone said that there was like you can use ultrasound waves to affect your brain and treat like brain conditions or like depression or something like that.
Oh, so
And
I think that's like the open water thing. Um, and my impression is that the open water type ultrasound tech for treating brain stuff is like fairly cutting edge. Like I don't think this is
mhm.
a common thing that people know
This
how
is
to do.
not something you can do with like a home ultrasound machine that they
That's
had.
that's my current impression. I'm not an expert though.
Okay. Yeah, and like someone mentioned there was some cult in like Berkeley that was like getting into using that or whatever. But it's like I couldn't find anything to back up that that's even a fact. So I was just
Yeah.
wondering if you knew anything about it. But
Well, yeah. So I think that well now that you're mentioning the medical equipment in the Border Patrol shooting, apparently in the Airbnb they had a stretcher. Like and like I don't know. It's like the Airbnb person was like, oh, this seems scary, but like I don't know. Maybe they're doing
wait,
like weird medical, huh?
the Airbnb where? Wait,
In Vermont, like
they had an
prior to
Airbnb.
the
I thought they were at a hotel in Vermont.
Yeah, I think there was also an Airbnb. I might be
Okay.
confusing a bit, but I just remember some news article, like some Airbnb owner talking about how like they had a stretcher for some reason, for like some very unclear reason. So it might be that these people are doing like weird medical stuff.
Yeah. The landlord seemed to be on the impression that they were using, that they were starting to medically transition to. He kind of chalked that up to their aggression towards him, which I don't think is, the case. Um,
Mm,
but yeah,
yeah,
he.
I mean, I think that
But
Emma
I don't know
and
if that's true.
Somni were both like just had transitioned a long time ago, so it wasn't.
Like medically.
Yeah.
Okay. And now I'm really like not an expert on transgender stuff. If you like transition, like if you did transition a long time ago, like they did medically, and then does that mean you do you still need to keep continuing to take estrogen in order to?
Yeah, you do
Okay.
continue to take estrogen, but it's gonna be, I'm saying it's gonna be a more stable situation at that point, so there's not
Right.
gonna be these like weird mood swings due to changing hormones in normal
Yeah. Okay.
conditions.
And would they what? Yeah. I mean that was just like a Lynn's interpretation, and he's not the best insight into the inner psychological workings of transgender people, just based
Hmm.
on a lot of things about him. But would you use this is a normie question, but you don't would you use needles and intravenously for estrogen
Oh,
or
well,
any
so
sort
I,
of?
I think that's definitely less common. I've
Okay.
done it before a little bit. I think it's one of the advantages is that you can store a lot of intravenous estrogen in like a vial,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like just heaps and heaps of pill containers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're trying to like buckle down and like I want to, I feel like this is going to get banned and I need to last like 5 years, and you have your like bunker with your stash, you might want to try the intravenous hormones. But otherwise, I think most people do the just like pills because it's easier.
Yeah. Okay. So with all right. Right. So stretcher. Might ask you to send me the article that you found that, and if you still have it, access to that, because that would be a crazy detail. And I think it's
Okay.
also starting to. It really does sort of establish the theme of like they have a lie, like yeah. According to Lind in his interview, he also said that and this is not something I've been able to confirm, that basically, according to him, the cops got into the electronic messaging between like Ziz and Jamie, and that Ziz basically told Jamie to kill her parents and then dissolve them with lie. And he said that basically did happen, but then as far as he knows, which he's not an authority on this, but he's it's something to look into. And but he was like, well, and she did kill them, but there was never any like lie or like things like that. But if there is lie found at that scene, that would imply a really strong connection, in my mind at least,
That makes
circumstantially.
sense. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess the can you remind me what the timing was? Like how many months passed between the landlord thing and the Pennsylvania homicide?
So the landlord thing happened about in I think early to mid November of 22, and then the murder of the Pennsylvania um, parents happened on New Year's Eve of 2022. So
Oh,
like
okay.
two
So those are
months.
pretty close in time.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, getting into the Pennsylvania murders. I guess one thing that's interesting is that Jamie was under the impression that Ziz was maybe going to kill her, and said that I think in like significantly before the landlord incident.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah, so this was the thing with Alice Monday of like basically
yeah.
receiving a hit order on Alice Monday. There's actually someone I was like friends with in like 2015 to 2016.
Hmm.
Um so um
Yeah. So yeah, in February of 22. So the same year that the landlord incident happened, that's when Jamie was posting that she was feeling threatened by Ziz. Um,
Yeah. And I think that this caused me to like worry about Alice Monday a bit because like, like Jamie receives hit order on Alice Monday and then initially publishes this, which is kind of like defection from the Ziz crew to like publish a hit order like this.
Yeah,
But then goes on to essentially join the Ziz crew and
yeah,
do like Ziz aligned ideological actions like parent homicide, at least as far as is currently
yeah.
speculated.
And
So yeah.
they when the cops arrested Ziz, they had a search warrant for the hotel room, and in there was Jamie, Ziz, and Daniel Blank. So they were
Hmm.
obviously like all hanging out and like friends, at least somewhat at that time. So
I see. Yeah. But I think that on Alice Monday's GitHub, there's a push from like 2024. So I'm less worried that she's actually gone. Um,
yeah, sorry. You kind of broke up there a little bit. Can you say that again?
I think one weird thing about okay, yeah, I was just saying that like Alice Monday's probably still alive because as a GitHub push in 2024.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think I was mentioning this in the context of like there's one really weird thing about this crew is the way that they use these Tumblr call out posts. Like for example, there's the call out post of Jamie saying her parents are abusive. There's call out posts by both Emma and Somni on like Alice Monday, and there's the more general um, like there's like a call out of like John Pressman on Ziz's blog, and even like a minor one about me claiming that like I have a priori knowledge of my own evil nature as revealed in Psychosis or something, which is like really weird. Um, and
it's
so
weird
like
to be the most normal person about your own psychosis.
right because I usually am saying like I feel like I might be an evil person, and most people are like, no, you're not. But this is like, yes, you have received a priori knowledge of your true nature.
That's so funny.
Yes.
It's also not a priori, right?
I know. I feel like I might be misphrasing it, but it's something like maybe it's a posteriori knowledge
Oh,
of one's
okay.
a priori nature or something.
Listen, this is the second time in 2 days I've had to tell people I'm really not an expert on Kantian philosophy.
I see.
Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of Tumblr call out posts. And it's, somewhat it's not like a cult flag. Well, I mean, I don't know, it can be, but it's like it was like in the times. It was like people did that, you know.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But
But
it's just like kind of a funny situation when it's like someone's posting online about like my parents were abusive in this kind of like Tumblr language, and then people suspect this person went on to like just kill her parents, and this is considered, I don't know, not abusive in the same way because I don't know, kill your abuser is a meme, or like kill your local
mm,
rapist was like a variation on the kill your abuser meme. It's just kind of a strange social situation going on there.
hmm can you confirm or deny that that was like the only public Tumblr post that she made about the abuse suffered at the hands of her parents?
I I don't remember. I vaguely remember something about like the parents forcing her to bleach her hair. And
Yeah.
I just don't remember that much about the specific accusations of abusive behavior.
I mean, I do from the that one Tumblr post. I was just wondering, like, is this something she posted about all the time, or was that just a one call out post? Because I think I remember just from sort of hearsay that she would talk about it with people in Discord servers and stuff. But in terms of things that are like documented that we could look at, what because the it does seem like at least verbal abuse based on that. And, I don't think it's cool to make your teenager eat meat if they're a vegan. But at the same time, that's, I think, sort of when people are like looking at it and trying to judge it. Like, if this is like, if those are like kind of like, if forcing her to bleach her hair, like forcing her to go to school, forcing her to, and sort of being verbally abusive about it and forcing her to eat meat. If that's the extent of it, I think people would have a much bigger problem of them dying
I
rather
would
than
totally
like
agree.
like
Yeah,
beating her,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. I think a thing that seems like these sort of error that these people are making a lot of the time is that they're acting on their judgment or like their own impression of which people are bad or like what has happened,
Yeah.
and they're not as much trying to present a credible account that could
Yeah.
cause third parties to think that they're doing the right thing, which actually has to imply that they've ended up getting in conflicts with third parties, and it doesn't quite really seem like they're tracking the cost of
Yeah.
getting in conflicts with third parties on account of not having provided enough evidence that like they are actually acting in a justified manner.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Like
it's like,
in theory, like they could have the correct impression that a given person is net negative for the world, right? Under some calculus, but like going out and murdering this person, even if like in isolation it is better for the world if this person doesn't exist, will generally cause people to side against them, unless it's like they presented the case really well.
yeah. Because I mean, I don't know. If like there's some like piece of shit parents that if they did get murdered by their kids, it's like, you know, but the extended abuse here was like, well, this isn't great and they're not great parents. I don't know if murder is justified, you know,
Yeah.
but
Well, another weird thing about all this is the degree to which a lot of these people just seemed like saints before, like,
yeah.
recent stuff. Like Michelle Zajko, like, I guess like worked in a children's hospital and wrote this like children's book and had this like bioinformatics specialty. Was thinking about how to do things like gene editing to improve people's lives. It's like, oh, reasonable stuff. That is like pretty saintly stuff to be into. And like someone like Ophelia is into things like working as a quant to make money to earn to give for EA, and also being interested in criticisms of effective altruism, which I think you can see on the Twitter profile. It's like, oh yeah, that's like broadly like good behavior for a person, to like both be interested in like making money to donate to help the world, but also interested in criticisms of this course of action. And then like these people who are have like I see them as like having these like virtuous or saintly properties, and then something happens and then they end up in the Ziz crew, and then it's like, oh yeah, double homicide or like stabbing landlord, and it's like, what? Just there's just something happened, like
Yeah.
just stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It is. And I think yeah, I think that also might sort of lend to the idea that it is a cult because, people do seem to like sort of change pretty drastically in like temperament or personality or things that they're into.
I, I guess another cult sign is like getting people to cut off their contacts with
Yeah.
previous friends or family, and that seems to be a recurring pattern. Like we say like Silver and Ivory, apparently according to Ophelia did this. Ophelia did this in like late 2023. Apparently Teresa, according to her parents, did this, and so like it seems like a thing where people might be taking this like slackmobile or like independence philosophy really seriously, and then being like, I should be really independent and live in a commune with my friends or political allies, and like cut off
Hmm.
contact with everyone else because I need to be like super independent.
Yeah. And Ziz writes about cutting off her own parents too.
Hmm.
So that would be, yeah. And I talked a little bit with Octavia about that, and she sort of gave the more like philosophical. Just she was like, well, the idea that it's to get better, that this is encouraging people to do this to get better control over them is sort of like a pejorative interpretation, and you can find justification for cutting off your parents within the philosophy. And then I was like, okay, but you mean it does happen to some extent. And she was like, yeah. So it's I would I guess I mean some of these people have been like listed as missing. Some of them I think have caught their parents. So this is definitely something to look into. As
Oh yeah,
like
it's just such a warning sign now. Like if I'm like, oh yeah, someone I knew cuts off contact and with everyone and decides to like do the secret travel plans, I'm like, oh, that sounds dangerous. They might just end up dead pretty soon.
it is worrisome. I
Yeah,
think maybe with the bad press, it's a little less tempting to get involved with them now. I
that's
guess
true. That's
hopefully
true.
with the whole federal investigation going
Oh
on.
yeah, but I'm not even talking about the Ziz crew here. Like even someone
Mhm.
across the world, if they hear that their friend is like cut off contact with everyone and then gone off and have secret travel plans, like maybe they should be more worried about their friend than they'd normally be inclined to. And I'm just it's
Yeah.
just based on, I don't know, some sort of statistical argument.
Yeah, it's hard to like say like if I was gonna like I've thought about like going off the grid or like hiking the Pacific Crest Trail or something, but then I would tell people, hey, I think I'm gonna hike the Pacific Crest Trail, so I'm gonna be
Oh
gone,
yeah.
but
Yeah. That
yeah,
that that is a different situation, I
but
think.
like people like Daniel Blank's last message was saying, yeah, he was on a work call and he was like, yeah, just expect me to be gone for a while, but he didn't really elaborate, per that one Twitter
Can we
user.
take a break for a few minutes?
Yeah, big stretch.
All right. Shall we resume?
Yeah, I just got my first quote tweet from a Japanese account. He's like, look what's going on over there in fucking America.
Wow.
I was like,
Yeah.
happy.
Is it related to the Ziz situation?
Yeah, just quote tweeting the Google Doc thing and like giving a brief overview and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, it is a really good document. Like,
Thank
I
you,
understand why you repost it because I really appreciate that you made this document.
thank you. Thank you. I'm very proud of it. I've worked very hard on it. It just seemed to me to be the most like I don't know. It's like there was such a lack of like a collection of all the information. Like the closest thing was a Medium article, but it was like there was a bunch of things without sources, and it was. So I was like, let me just like color code some bullshit and put it all together. You know what I mean? I
Hmm.
also got mentioned
Yeah,
in Reason, the Reason article that just came out, I guess. So that was cool, I guess. I don't know.
that's neat.
Yeah. Anyways, where were we?
Um,
So
oh, right. People cutting off contact. We were
people
talking
cutting
about
off
people
contact.
cutting off contact. Yeah. So I think it's like, does it make it more of a cult? Like, I think this is a like cult sign. If
Yeah.
the normal thing in this group is to cut off contact with people who are not in this group or belief system or
Yeah.
whatever.
That's definitely strike one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 Um. Yeah. The Then I guess we're getting into the Pennsylvania homicides.
Hmm.
Um. Yeah. I heard that some people have hypothesized that they might be rich and so there might be some sort of monetary motivation. How much do you know about that?
So I know very little about that. I have heard
Okay.
that claim before. Um, I
The
also
news
think,
confirmed they were landlords of multiple properties. But
okay. Well, yeah, I mean, that does seem to imply that they're rich.
yeah.
Um, and I assume they were at least like, upper middle class given Michelle Zajko's educational background and such. It's like that would be fairly
Yeah.
normal.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and like I think that mm, so I'm not sure one thing that confused me a bit is I think with a landlord stabbing, they maybe they really were trying to save money. Maybe they were like actually poor.
Yeah.
Um, but it seems like there were some people who came in later, like Ophelia or Adire or like Maximilian, that actually did have a reasonable amount of money. So, it's unclear like how much money they had over the course. Like maybe they were just
Mm-hmm.
the time with the landlord stabbing was just they were pretty poor at that point. Um, so
Yeah. The Definitely at the beginning, before they moved in with the landlord, they were pretty poor, as evidenced by Ziz's blog posts saying that like she was like a lot of it was financial struggles. I think in Rat Fleet and stuff talking about it was like difficult living situations and not being able to afford things like that, and just I think with like the sort of the almost confrontation that she describes with Gwen, where they describe almost like coming to blows over like some sort of just like neediness basically was part of that was exacerbated by the money situation. So I don't,
mhm.
but yeah, I think after when the landlord things happen, I mean, I guess it depends on like if Emma was working at Google or like what, because like I heard some sort of unsubstantiated thing that she retired in her 20s from Google by like having money. So but I mean also like if it's like you can't be evicted, it's very much a Zizian thing to say, well we're not gonna, you can't make us leave, so we're just not gonna pay rent type thing. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
So, um, but yeah, so you're under So I guess it's like something to that's definitely something. Uh, who comes from money? Something I'm going to be looking into because I know it would be reasonable to sort of interpret that Jamie Zyko did. Um, Also, this is sort of the time. Well, no, it's like after the Pennsylvania murder, so it's like really quick. But with the Pennsylvania murders, basically this couple gets murdered, and then apparently they interview Jamie, and Jamie is like, let's has like a gun, and she lets them hold the gun or like check out the gun, and then the officer is like makes the connection. Oh, this gun is the same type of gun that we identified with the ballistics as being used in the murder. So let's get a search warrant for like this room that Jamie is staying in to see if there is a murder weapon there, which is really a roundabout way of saying that like, well, we think this is a murder weapon, and they went there, and then that's where they find Jamie and Ziz and Daniel Blank hanging out in a hotel room in early or like mid-January, and then this is where Ziz is just like apparently lies on the ground with her eyes closed and just refuses to interact, and they carry her out, and that's an arrest her for obstruction. So
Wow. That's one way to exercise your grandeur. I guess it's not a particularly advisable way.
yeah, I mean, yeah, so I guess I don't know, maybe they're all listed as persons of interest in the case, including Ophelia, just based on different court documents from
Oh,
different
even
time
Ophelia.
periods.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, because Ophelia. Wait, well, I mean, I guess don't quote me on that. It was like because it was in the, I believe, the court or the bail hearings for Teresa that just happened this week. They're talking about the Pennsylvania murders and how many people are things, and they said Ophelia flew in to the states into Pennsylvania, like right around the time of the murder. So
Well,
that's
I heard that that somehow they were the police were not able to find a motive for the parent homicide or something. There's some recent article, like possible like I don't know police incompetence or something, where like it's just kind of like first of all there's the inheritance obviously. Second, just like I think a thing that's kind of structural in a lot of this is that people in this like rationality scene were like, oh yeah, this person equal like Ziz equals Jack LaSoda, and like Jamie equals Michelle Zajko. Like people can like basically tell who these different people are. But like if you're not embedded in the social media thing, both because these people are trans and have alternative names, and
yeah.
because they have this like social media stuff, it's like not completely straightforward to figure out like this name equals this name.
Yeah, and like the connection between the Tumblr post talking about her parents being abusive, um, that the Medium article posted was actually some really good investigative journalism that someone did, which is basically like Jamie is cited in this paper at her university for studying this, and right around that time, this Tumblr user is posting about like this exact thing, and
Hmm.
so like, which is just like a really good connection. And then from there you look at the Tumblr post, and it's like about like veganism and like a lot of the sort of more Zizian interests, and it does talk about like parents being abusive, and it's like, oh duh, right? And also people who just know that. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know, it's yeah, I don't know, it doesn't seem, I don't think that like I don't know if I've done that much like work just besides collecting and presenting information, like I'm not like, there's very little like what you could actually call firsthand research that I've done, in term like especially like just compared to like that. It's like I maybe have like 2 or 3 paragraphs in like the 30-page document, right? So it's just like the collecting the information that other people already have is mainly what I'm doing. But it still seems it's like until the San Francisco Chronicle came out today, it was still head and shoulders above like everything else you could find, and just in terms of like trying to summarize it and get accurate facts out there, which is just like, I don't know, I mean it's like work, but like I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I mean, I think there's both like being able to investigate stuff and also being willing to talk about it
Yeah,
in public. And I think that's another differentiating factor where like I think
true.
like I've noticed this multiple times. They publish an article and it's very clear that the journalist knows who this person is, but they're not saying the name. And it's probably because they're like, I don't know, they're trying to be conservative. They don't want to like accidentally defame anyone. That kind
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah. And they're Yeah, like the cops never the cops never publicly mentioned about like the fact that they basically raided the daughter's hotel room to get an alleged murder weapon on a warrant and things like this, and that there was like one person who had been thought to have been dead who was there, and like another person who, like, Daniel Blank's his like government page for like missing persons has his last cited date in like just around December 20th, and like the cops found him in this search warrant and like a month later. You know what I mean?
Weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're just like not publishing it, and it's like, it's they tell the media what they want to tell the media, and sometimes they just don't want to say things. So it's like a lot of the stuff about the Pennsylvania homicides, it's just really coming out now as it pertains to holding bail for like some of these same people, like as they emerge in the Vermont stuff, you know.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. But I will say it is impressive how a lot of the assumptions and sort of leaps in logic about the Pennsylvania case that people were making online in the community, most of them did turn out to be true. Like the
Yeah,
fact that like
that
Jamie
seems
and
right.
Ziz are suspected by the police, and that the obstruction charges were probably related to this and this and that or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's all been totally confirmed. The only thing is
And
like,
my guess is like the person whoever did the community warning post did like
mm-hmm,
quite a lot of research. It's a pretty well
yeah,
done post, and mostly I didn't see people having any factual disagreements with the post. I saw
yeah,
some people criticizing like the vibe of the post or something, but I didn't see people like pointing out here's a straightforward factual error. And my guess is if they that like some of the rationalists know enough that like if there had been these like very straightforward errors, they might have been pointed out or corrected.
yeah. There could be better sources just to like back it up and corroborate things. Like I think like one of the things that I have on my wall is the basically the law enforcement finding Gwen at the scene after the assault of or like the incident with like Lind and the tenants. If that's true, then there would be like some way to find that legal document, and she didn't include it, even though she did include other legal documents in there. But I mean, that's just not. Yeah, there's nothing in the article to suggest that anything is like infactual. It's like totally full of like factual information, and even the like guesses and assumptions mostly turned out to be true. Like the only thing is like people were worried that Daniel Blank was murdered by Ziz or like went missing, and that he was named as a person of interest, but also was like not a. But a lot of people assumed he didn't commit the murders or participate in that in any way. But like and that's but now we have information that he was there at the scene. Although he did cooperate with the police. He followed all the
That
police's
is interesting.
instructions. He was very helpful. So that makes me think
Hmm.
he's not a Zizian because
That is different. Like it seems like
if you can say hello, officer, how are you? It's like that's you failed the shibboleth, dude.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with a lot of these people, there were like there were signs that they had the Ziz ideology, and like with Daniel Blank, it's like not as much, and it might have been like maybe an
Yeah.
early stage in recruitment. That's like one
Maybe. Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we also have Fluttershy, who we sort of like skipped over as this other suicide,
We did.
um,
Yeah.
who
I
was
know
like a kind
very
of.
little about that.
I mean, so I think that there was stuff about the Rationalist fleet, where Jay Fluttershy was with them, and
Yeah.
and like they're basically like complaining about her, um, and and then there was this whole blog like mentalengineering.info talking about like some of this I don't know like mental tech, but like in this like less like morally intense like Zizian frame and more in this like amateur psychology CFAR-ish frame. And I think that, and then there's even this like containment cause of suicidality post that's like kind of a almost like a suicide note. And I didn't even hear about the
Is this all
suicide until
on
like
Fluttershy's blog at that last
yeah,
name?
mentalengineering.info.
Okay.
Might be on archive or something. Um, but but like I feel like Fluttershy was like kind of a failed recruit. So like I assume it goes in. You mentioned Freemason, so like maybe there it goes in stages, and maybe Daniel Blank was at the start of the pipeline, and like Fluttershy got like further down the pipeline, but then got rejected.
I don't know. I don't. I know there's like drama and a lot of fingers pointed at Fluttershy's suicide, but I don't like. Um, it seemed to be like I don't know. I've kind of stayed away from it just because it seemed more on the sort of messy drama side of things, and I don't
Yeah.
necessarily want to. If it's all sort of he said, she said, and it's I don't know. If
Yeah, I mean,
there's
it's just very hard to assign responsibility. Like, I
yeah,
think
but
at a
also I mean
given.
like if there is reason to believe that like Ziz is like sort of behind it or responsible more than like just the circumstantial evidence of everything else we know about Ziz, then I would be willing to like look at it closer, I suppose. But I
And
don't
like
know.
to be clear, I think Ophelia's impression was like me like it is more. I think Ophelia thought it was like more plausible that Ziz had been a causal factor in the Fluttershy suicide than the Pasek, but like or Maya, but considered them like both like very speculative, like not all that
Yeah,
likely.
yeah, but yeah. So I guess we're getting into now the part where like I feel like Ophelia and Adare are like more on this scene in like
Hmm.
New England and stuff at this not New England. I keep forgetting Pennsylvania's in New England because I'm
Mm.
an idiot. But the did you so like where when we start to get into like the sort of the Pennsylvania stuff at the end of 22, like where are you in relation to this story?
So I would say that during the year of 2022, I met Ophelia, and we
Okay.
might have met at some like Rationalist event, either an Overcoming Bias meetup or house party or something. And I think we became like pretty close friends pretty quickly and started like visiting each other's houses and like meeting each other's friend groups. So you can see some engagement on on the Ophelia's Twitter with like Ben Hoffman's ideas, for example, and like so like Ophelia was visiting me and Ben Hoffman sometimes,
Okay.
and so we're just discussing like some of the kind of expected like things to discuss among like rationalists around then, which included like AI, ethics, math, decision theory, effective altruism, the Sam Bankman-Fried situation, that sort of thing.
And how was Ophelia like as a person at that time?
So I think that um, so she was broadly like pretty like serious, like into this like math and ethics and stuff. I think she was an ethical vegan and was uh, like kind of like socially strange in the sense of um like I think I even made a weird comment about like maybe Ophelia is like 5 sigma in terms of not being affected by the social fields of it seems like kind of a strange person, maybe like the kind of traits people might associate with Asperger's, although not like shy. Like it seemed like she definitely had a friend group of mostly like technical people in like math or something or
Mm-hmm.
technology, and was like pretty social within this group. But like definitely seemed like a weird person, maybe someone who didn't understand normal people very well.
Okay. Yeah. And we can take this question out if you don't want to talk about it. But I heard that you dated Ophelia, or is that right?
It's like ambiguous. I think with a lot of these relationships, it's like, it's are we dating? Are we not dating? It's like, how many times do you have to be like cuddling with someone in bed until you're like dating? And then it's just this like I feel like I sort of I think when I started dating more like trans girls, it became it became more common for these relationships to be like highly illegible like this. Um,
Okay. So we'll put that out if anyone wants to get further confirmation on whether that
okay.
counts as a relationship.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But okay, okay. Um, and then when did I guess so you were living in the same city and like visiting friends, and when
Yeah,
did
so I,
that
I think Ophelia was in New Jersey and I was in New York City.
okay, yeah, and then when uh when did contact sort of stop with her?
Oh, so I think that well, first of all, before contact stopped, there was a very weird conversation I had with Ophelia and Michael Vassar,
Okay.
where it was like it's very hard to summarize, but we were arguing about things like whether Ziz was how much Ziz's ideas were influenced by Michael Vassar, the degree to which Ziz treated Michael Vassar as like a wizard, and also Michael Vassar saying like because Ophelia has decided to name herself Ophelia, and Ophelia is a canonical suicidal character in literature because of Hamlet, and there was even this thing where I was like sort of we were thinking of having me play Hamlet in like some sort of like amateur production of Hamlet, and he was just like this is not a good situation. I think Ophelia might kill herself, and I think spending too much time with Jessica might cause Ophelia to be more suicidal. And which turned out like it sounded really weird at the time because maybe it's this kind of lazy nominative determinism reasoning, but like wow, like now she ended up dead in like a few
Although
years.
to be fair, it was not suicide. You know.
Yeah, I mean, suicide by cop if you want to count suicide by cop, but yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Um, but yeah, so that was a weird conversation, and so I think this is whenever it's been a funny situation when journalists ask me like, is there a Vassarite connection? Like, was there an overlap between like Ophelia and like the Vassarites? And I can just explain like, well, they had this really weird conversation and they really did not get along. um,
Can you I'm very sort of not informed on what the Vassarites and who Vassar is. Can you give me just like the normie 5 minute intro?
um, So I would say that Michael Vassar was a person who was like pretty early on in the AI risk scene, like Miri CFAR stuff, and has really interesting theories having to do with things like social dysfunctions in institutions and like the psychology of trauma and the degree to which people can like flip in these like sort of moral alignments as a result of having like experiences in which they like don't have recourse and are like basically abused. And so it's kind of hard to summarize the thinking. There's like a Spencer Greenberg podcast about where he's talking about like mistake theorists and conflict theorists. So this is kind of a Scott
Mm-hmm.
Alexander post, and Michael references it a bunch. So it's like he has some let's say like very interesting, somewhat like out there social theories, and he's like a very like it so like some people find him off-putting because he's like saying a bunch of weird stuff, and other people are like, oh, that's very interesting, and I should like really think about that. And I think this was a thing kind of early on in the Rationalists where some people were like you would sort of be wandering around like the Muri office or something and having these like weird conversations where he says things that are unusual, and some people are like kind of like laughing it off, and other people are like, oh wow, I should really listen, and like maybe this is like an advanced wizard or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the when people are talking about Vassarites, it's like, who is this? Like, clearly Michael Vassar's a Vassarite, but there's also like Ben Hoffman and me. Apparently, we're like the considered the Vassar trio, at least like as of like 2022 to
Oh, nice.
2023. So I would say at this point, instead of calling myself a Vassarite, I would just say I am a friend and I guess like coworker of Michael Vassar. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like not so much like I'm subscribing to the Michael Vassar ideology as like I do try to learn things from him.
Okay. Nice. Thank you. Um. So there's a strange conversation that happened, and then how do you end up like losing contact with Ophelia? Is Ophelia going back and forth from Germany and New
Um,
Jersey?
N- Not that I remember actually. I thought she was in New Jersey, but I kept meeting with Ophelia a bit afterwards, and I think we talked about the silver and ivory thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think I just kind of moved out. Like I don't think we met in person after 2022.
Okay.
And so
You said you moved out.
uh, well, yeah, I'm trying to get the timing on this right, but
Did you
it
like
must have
move
been
out?
like about 2 years ago that I moved out. Like,
Which would
eh,
be early 23.
yeah, like one to 2 years ago. But
Okay.
in any case, we had a few like text messages in like early 2023. So we sort of like drifted apart. But what I heard from a mutual friend is that like later on, what happened was during summer of 2023, Ophelia had all these like secretive phone calls,
Yeah.
And started and during like late 2023 started like kind of cutting people off and traveling more and like quitting
You
her
said
job.
early 23 or late 23?
Late 2023.
Okay. So like
And
about a
this is
year
like
after you guys broke contact, she started having these secretive phone
yeah,
calls.
yeah. So it
Right.
was like a yeah, so like something weird was going on with these like secretive phone calls, but like people don't really know what was happening.
Mm-hmm. Because I was when I heard this story about the secretive phone calls, my first instinct was like, oh, she was cheating on you, but it's like not so
No,
simple.
I mean
Yeah.
there was no like any kind of like monogamy
Oh,
agreement
okay.
going
Yeah.
on. So there's no yeah, yeah.
It wouldn't be something you should be hiding. Okay. Um. Yeah, and then okay. And I believe Ophelia. This might have been at the time where Ophelia and Teresa were living together in I think North Carolina or somewhere like that.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, I didn't know about that. I just didn't know anything about Teresa until like very recently.
okay. And then and then I guess we're getting into the border shootout where they're 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 purchasing guns from Teresa
Hmm.
or no from Jamie. Teresa and Ophelia are purchasing or no I think they have no they don't purchase it or at least no I'm sorry I'm fucking this up.
I think it's just a provision of a gun. It's unknown if there's money exchanged.
Yeah, the guns to them that they use in the shootout and we're also just sort of carrying and transporting around were there's like a record of them being legally purchased by Jamie Zajko in
Hmm.
Vermont, and then provided to them, and then they used it in the shootout and things like that, and then we're basically where we are today. Aside from I heard that Adare was sort of came on to the scene around like I think like 23, 24, or no I think like 23 and was like doing a combination of fundraising to try and get Ziz out of bailed out of, but then also kind of proselytizing for Zizianism in a
Oh,
way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that matches my impression. Like I don't have independent confirmation of the bail thing, but like that matches what people have told me. And with the proselytizing, I'd followed the Blue September or Adir account, and I was like, okay, yeah, this seems like a moralistic, like ethical, vegan, like Ziz-ish ideology type person. So the idea that this person would be proselytizing the Ziz ideology would be like
Mm-hmm.
that matches up.
And are you positive that this is Adair?
I am fairly sure, based on both people telling me this over Discord and then just looking at the details. So things
Mm-hmm.
like the ideology. There's also a Maximilian Snyder is connected with the name Adair or Adir in two different ways, both the LinkedIn and this other Twitter account called like Adir with some weird numbers or something. But like I'm pretty sure that Adir is an alias of Maximilian Snyder. And also, if you look at the Blue
Yeah.
September account, you see vegan transmortalist. And you also see that on the Milo suspected account of Teresa, it also says vegan transmortalist.
Okay. Yeah. So that's yeah pretty much confirmed. Um,
Hmm.
Now the so you were just so it was less like conversations with people in the scene saying like hey Adair is like trying to like convert me to Zizianism or really trying to push this and more just like you heard that this is his account and that the sort of more aggressive moralist theory kind of lines up. So what you're saying?
Oh yeah. So there's that, but there's also similarities, which overlaps with things like the ethical veganism of like
Mm-hmm.
there's apparently like a catchphrase of idea of telling asking people like, "Are you vegan?" Like, "Are you vegan?" And this
A
kind of like,
catchphrase?
"What?"
Catchphrase?
like a catchphrase, like
Oh
just
yeah.
sending this to people repeatedly, like just checking in. Are you vegan yet? And this is something that like Emma Borhanian had sent to me in like 2022, and we got in this whole like discussion of like carnist philosophy that might have ended up
Hmm.
on the blog. Um, and like I it's like I was like sort of making a case in favor of predation in nature or something, and like so it's sort of a thing with a lot of people in there where it's this it's the ethical veganism and the like sort of signature catchphrase like, are you vegan yet? Are you vegan yet?
That reminds me so much of how like evangelicals down here in the South will be like, they'll just kind of touch your arm and it's like, and I don't know if you believe in Jesus, but but blah blah blah, but you should, and here's why. And then I'm like, no, I'm like, I believe, and then they just don't listen. And they just kind of keep trying to convince you, like not that like there's like not listening to people who tell them that, but it's very like, oh geez, I know exactly how this conversation's gonna go.
Hmm.
Um, okay. Now, I'm trying to think. Um,
Um,
that's pretty much the timeline. You
yeah,
know.
that is pretty much the timeline. I mean, there's of course the Curtis Lynn being finished off.
Yes, by
Um,
Adare.
and so maybe I can discuss a bit like how I reacted to this because
Yeah,
like we're actually like in the timeline where like I'm coming in, right?
yeah.
Luckily not I'm coming into this crime ring and doing some homicides, but like
It's like the community
like
gift just
interacting with
walking
this.
in with the pizza and everything's on fire. Like, uh,
So it was yeah, I think I said before like I got a message from a friend like, is Ophelia dead? And I was like, oh, I checked it out, like, oh, biographical details match up. The picture in my phone matches up to this person who's named Felix. I didn't even know the Felix name before, but like apparently Felix at Tower Research, same photo. And so I was like, oh yeah, I guess my friend died. And then I posted about this online and I posted a little bit about Zizians. I used the phrase death cult, which apparently ended up in some media headlines. Um, and so basically what happened, there's a few things that happened. One of the people messaging me asking me to take it down because it makes trans people look bad or it makes Teapot look bad. And my response was like mostly a polite version of like, I don't care. And it's like I think that the part of what was going on for me was that because someone I knew died, um, it I felt like actually energized because it felt like something matters, and there's probably something that is possible to do about this because we didn't even know at the time like had the how much had the feds figured out like are these
yeah.
people going to get caught, and so I was like wait yeah, I don't know how much the feds know, and it feels good to talk about this, and it seems like something matters to me. And it seems like people have these political considerations of like it makes trans people look bad, which made me think of that like joke on Twitter of like imagine if ISIS were to detonate a nuclear device in America and kill 50 million Americans. Imagine the backlash. What worries me is the backlash on peaceful Muslims.
Yeah,
So it's like
shout outs to the
there's
late
that,
great Norm Macdonald.
sorry, can you say that again?
I said shout outs to the late great Norm Macdonald.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then also I just get a bunch of people being like vaguely transphobic in the replies. Like these are male. These are men pretending to be women, and then they're like sort of
Yeah.
like policing me on my like gender pronouns and language because are like, no, you have to emphasize these are men. Like
Yeah.
um and so it was just kind of a uh,
Seems like the least
um,
important part of all of this.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Like the only way it's important is this whole like rectification of names thing. Because there's like these people have they have their legal name, they change their legal name, they have their social media name, they have informal trans names or nicknames, and like it's just very confusing. Like if you're not
Yeah.
familiar with the scene, like the fact that like most people in this group are like some flavor of trans or like have these like alternative trans names and social media profiles is just like really confusing. And I think one thing that's kind of hamstrung the like quote liberal media reporting on this is that it's like, is it polite to use the person's dead name or use the what pronouns should I use? And
Yeah.
there's like Yeah.
And it was also kind of confusing because at first I thought Ophelia was Teresa because the police reported Ophelia as a man, like a German
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
because I guess she hadn't like transitioned or wasn't passing or whatever.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
but
I think she was actually still presenting mail at work.
okay, yeah,
So probably hadn't changed legal documents, and that's just something that makes this very confusing.
yeah,
Is like, do the genders line up with what people expect? Often they don't.
hmm and I don't know why I said that. I have nothing to say.
Oh,
I
oh
almost
yeah.
did.
So I guess what I experienced was there's people telling me like,
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know, you shouldn't be talking about this, and there's but what I was doing other than like, just like continuing to leave my post up and not delete it, was I was like, I really suspect there's a Ziz connection here. I really think it is. And I was in these like various discords. I saw like Celine's post about like, oh, Teresa is like Adir's girlfriend, and I was like, oh, I should really look into that. And then things like the social media profiles being uncovered and me posting about it, or the Instagram saying like, talk to me about being vegan and AI alignment, where it's like
hmm
that really sounds like a Ziz person. Or the fact that they had they got in trouble for wearing this tactical gear that seemed suspicious. The hotels, it's like when have I heard about people wearing scary clothing and then the vibes are off and they get in trouble because the vibes are off? Oh, the CFAR protest. So
yeah,
it might have seemed like very speculative to people at the time, but like the subsequent things have like basically confirmed that like, yeah, there was a Ziz connection here.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess the there is I don't know. I mean, when I hopped on, it was already kind of taken off. I was so like when people sort of like kind of talk to me about my role and how it might not be good for the community. The communities just receive a lot of scrutiny and stuff. Like my idea was like, well, it's it's already kind of starting to receive scrutiny, and we might as well get the facts right. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
but so I never really questioned whether what I'm doing is like right. But I guess there is you know a lot of storytellers like media or documentary people. They don't necessarily get things right all the time. In fact, you couldn't even say they get things right most of the time. But
Hmm.
like like what is so it's like a lot of communities really don't want like the flack and just the sort of friction that comes with being like a main character in the media, like, and especially
Yeah.
like I can understand for like trans people after having lived like the last 10 years just not wanting to see like just sort of like trans discussion points in the national media every day because it just doesn't make anybody's lives any easier.
Hmm.
But so it's like I guess what was your thought process in deciding, because you were like the first person to kind of like break the Ziz connection. You were the first person to be like, you know, that it was like your tweet was like the tweet that everyone was talking about and like for like a long time. So what when you were like kind of deciding that it was like, okay, no, this deserves to be a big deal. Like what was your thought
Well,
process behind
yeah.
that? You know what
So
I
I
mean?
would say that my initial thought process in posting it was like, it wasn't quite a thought process. It was just reflexive. Like, oh,
Oh well,
friend
yeah,
died. I think people should know my friend died.
yeah.
Like, I think that because other people are friends with this person and maybe they know that
Mm-hmm.
like just the straightforward thing. And then I think over time it's like, well, I could delete it, but if I did delete it, wouldn't it just be really confusing? Like for anyone trying to
Yeah.
report on this, they would just be like what the heck is going on because people are referring to this like deleted post and like there would just be like all this uncertainty everywhere. And I suspected that like maybe it's actually important for people to know some of these details because if we can shed light on this, well, like just it'll be less likely that it'll be more likely that some of these people like Michelle Zajko or Ziz are like ultimately stopped from like going on their whatever homicides they would ordinarily do. Like my attitude, I kind of thought through a bit of the game theory because I was thinking like, well, there's this idea of like a unilateralist curse of like, just one person can make a decision and then, but they're deciding for everyone because, like, so like if someone like, if there's a button, like everyone has a button. If only one person presses the button, the world changes. Maybe you should be hesitant to press the button, even if you think it's a good idea, because you should have like more discussion first. But it seemed to me that in this situation, like the unilateral thing of sharing information is like actually positive. because like if people just are not as careful as they ordinarily would be with sharing information, like probably these people get apprehended. Like
Yeah.
I think that like there have to be people who know details and they're not sharing them, and that's part of why like this can continue. I even hear about people being like scared to talk about this because they
Yeah.
might like get retaliated against. And if that's even a consideration for people, like it just really seems like talking about it is like a basically pro-social thing to do. Like I just feel like, having this like whatever death cult or murder cult or whatever you want to call it around, and like more people, including people I know, just like dying over time because people are afraid to talk about it because it makes like rationalists or trans people look bad. That just doesn't seem like a very sensible policy.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, and I guess there's also like assumptions about like the level of information that the police are working with, but
Yeah.
also it's like, I mean, I don't know, like if like these people like they're like Ziz was like Ziz faked her own death and that was like caught twice, like at like murder or attempted murder scenes, and they're like, I guess you can go, we'll
Yeah.
reduce the bail,
So,
it's like not, it's like, do you guys not understand she has like fucking like warrants? Like,
yeah.
is this
So
not like
so
a
it seems like I think a lot of these things are ambiguous between like how much is it police incompetence versus police like not really trying to do their job. Like,
yeah,
because you can say, like, intelligence agencies are very powerful, they're spying on everyone, they know everything. And then it's kind of like this theodicy problem of, like, if this is true, then why do they allow, like, homicides? Like, why does the NSA, if they're spying on everyone, like, why are there still murderers at large? But like you can also think of them as like less competent. Like, okay, even though they can spy on everyone, they're fairly limited in their information processing. And then it's like less surprising. You don't have to assume as much that they're not trying to do their job. But like some combination of like unknown combination of like incompetence and or like actually lacking information and like not having intentions to do their job have led to people like Ziz or Michelle Zajko being apprehended sometimes multiple times and like let free when some of the rationalist people who like people who have read this community alert post are like they're already operating on the model that like, oh yeah, these are at large people who have done some homicides, and
yeah,
like it seems like someone should know about that.
yeah, yeah. Especially just with like people who might be like somewhere, like friends of friends are close to them and sort of like reevaluating like what to do with regards to them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
that's like when I'm trying to look at these like cops to like tell me more information about like these things than they've like said before. Like I think lately like one of my emails to the detective was not a detective, a public information officer. I was like, listen, if the more you like, if you can confirm or deny that there's sort of like there are some people, especially who are closer to them, who are kind of thinking like, well, maybe the psychos did deserve to die, right? Maybe like the
Yeah.
landlord died, maybe he started it, right? And
Yeah.
maybe like I just believe my friend's accounts. And it's a very reasonable thing to do to believe your friend's accounts of what happened over like random law enforcement or random people, right? And at least to a certain extent, and I think like that, establishing this paper trail and you know, establishing that like who's telling the truth and who's lying, like, I mean, I'm trying to keep an open mind, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure it's like it's very hard to watch the interview with Kurt Lind and believe that he would start anything with anybody. That he
Yeah.
shares like 51% of that blame. That's just like very difficult for me to believe as a person who's been around people, but you know, but like let's say, assuming I think the most probable outcome is that the Zizians and pro-Zizians are just lying about a lot of things in their accounts. And if we can prove that to be the case, then, that might make some people who are like closer to them flip, I guess.
That's a really good point. Yeah, so that's an important like justice thing. People are acting under uncertainty, and a lot of these people are
Yeah.
like at some level like they're trying to be moral.
Yeah.
Maybe some people are acting in bad faith, but like, but yeah, like it's if you can pin down like here are the basic facts. Here, like there actually is not room for doubt about a number of these things.
Yeah.
Then there's some amount of people having like actual uncertainty about what happened, and some
Yeah.
amount of people, I don't know, maybe acting in bad faith. But either way, like if these things are like well proven and there's more facts on the ground that are known, then like people can make more informed moral decisions. They can be like, okay, well, I initially thought that these people were acting in the right in the landlord, think that they were acting in self-defense, but after reviewing the information, I have changed my mind, and that might affect what decisions I take in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. Um yeah. Anyways, I think that's a pretty good place to stop. So yeah.
Hmm.
So would reporters or document people doing documentaries, should they reach out to you?
But basically, yeah, I think they've
Okay.
already been doing some of that, and I've
Yeah.
been like mostly getting back to them. And so I probably do have a reasonable amount of time to talk. The main thing I would ask for reporters is just like run quotes by me first, because I apparently like sort of got somewhat misquoted talking about timeless decision theory in the Open Vallejo post, and then a bunch of like really annoyed rationalists in the comments are like, "This is a really bad description," and I just don't want to be misquoted. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So if you're bad at your job, leave her alone. But if you're good at your job,
Like,
go
to be
ahead.
fair, the Open Vallejo article, it's great. It's just this one comment about timeless decision theory where I was like sort of trying to explain to them this like sort of galaxy brain idea of you identify as an algorithm, not as like a particular body, which means you have multiple bodies simultaneously because you're an algorithm. And it might have like gotten like a bit lost in translation.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you're concerned with getting things
Hmm.
accurately, if you're concerned with like the truth and stuff, then otherwise don't bother.
Yeah.
Kick rocks.
Sounds about right.
Um, right. And does just DMing you on Twitter work?
Yeah, that's the most convenient thing.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, really appreciate it, and I really appreciate your work on the document
Oh,
talking
thank
about
you.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.